Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of On Oshkosh. I'm your host Cheryl Hentz. Very pleased to be joined this evening by someone who has never been on the show, but he is now, and hopefully this will not be his last time on the show. His name is Tom Simon. Tom is the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity of Oshkosh.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. On our last show, I spoke quite a bit with Oshkosh City Manager Mark Roloff about the issue of affordable housing. The sad reality is that we simply don't have enough of what is truly affordable housing in Oshkosh, by most people's standards anyway. I understand affordable housing is, that's kind of a relative thing depending on who you're talking to, but if you're talking to the norm in the city, we don't have enough affordable housing. So we're going to talk about, what Habitat for Humanity is doing and the whole affordable housing issue. You guys are really doing some exciting things, so we definitely want to talk about that. But to start, to kind of set this ball in motion here, there's a forecast in a study that was done for the city of Oshkosh in 2021. It was released in 2022, and you were part of that group. That study showed that Oshkosh would grow by over 3,200 permanent residents by the year 2030, so just 7 short years from now. And City Manager Mark Roloff, in his March State of the City address, said that in order to accommodate that 3,200 additional population, the city needs to produce almost 1,700 new housing units. And that equates, he said, to about 160 units annually. Now, obviously, there's a lot of housing going on, housing units that are being built, condos, apartments. There's apartments being built left and right in the city, as you know. But I don't think that is it certainly isn't my idea of affordable housing, because they're upscale apartments with big price tags, and I believe that they're out of reach of the average Oshkosh residents. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the way we define affordable housing and where many put it is someone paying more than 30% of their income for housing. And that number is skyrocketing in our area. We're seeing a lot of applicants who are now paying over 50% of their income for housing. So I think there is an agreement. It's not just Oshkosh. This is a national problem. It's seen as a national crisis. The problem that I would say is, I agree with Mr. Roloff's analysis, is I was part of the housing study. Yeah, we're looking at a daunting number of units that need to be done. So I guess the one thing that I would say about Habitat is we're only providing a really small part of this.
Yeah.
But what has to be done, this is a supply side problem.
Yeah.
People can talk, people can talk about it a lot, but we have to be building.
Exactly, yeah. There's another study that I looked at, and it's called the Alice study, and Alice is like Alice in Wonderland, but it's not quite that happy of a story. Alice is an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed.
Right.
So it's a select group of people who fit into those parameters. Asset limited, income constrained, employed. So that study, is that out yet, or is that coming?
Yeah, it is periodically updated.
Okay.
And what you're really seeing with Alice is, working poor.
Yeah.
And the reality is, not only are lower income people suffering, and they're usually in service level jobs, not only are they suffering because rent keeps going up, you can't build wealth. When you think about it, when you own something, you have an asset that's growing that you can use for collateral and loans. You can do a whole bunch of things. So the Alice study is just showing that the stress on that class is just getting exponentially worse right now.
Yeah. Basically, it looks at how much income people have and what they're having to spend of that income on rent. And just one example that was from the most recent Alice study, a 1-bedroom apartment in our area, and that would include even a studio, is now projected to cost between $880 to $900 a month. And market rate rent for a 2-bedroom unit is now going for more than $1,200 a month. And it went on, this is just one statistic, and it kind of goes to your point, Tom. A woman living with 2 children is considered to be living in poverty at $24,000 of income. And with rent rates as they currently are, as you said, that would show that she's having to spend more than 50% of her monthly or annual income just on housing, and that is unacceptable.
Interestingly, if you talk to us again in about four weeks or so, we're taking applicants right now for our next year's home builds.
Yeah, you're in your campaign
and
right now.
We're just seeing the early studies. We only have 6 completed applications in right now, but we're seeing rents. People have to put down what is their current housing situation. We are seeing rents at or higher than the Alice study right now. And yes, we are seeing a lot of single parents. That is where the real face of poverty right now is in the community. Single mom with multiple children, we're seeing a lot, 40, 50% of income for housing.
Are there any type of, not grants necessarily, but any kind of assistance out there that help these folks? I know that's sort of out of your wheelhouse a little bit.
Yeah, but we try to work with these groups as well. I mean, I think the housing thing is going to require a holistic approach. You can't really think about it in your own silo. The one thing that we are seeing is a lot of people are trying to go to subsidized rentals right now. We have, the housing authority, but their waiting list extends out like 2 years plus, and they often have to stop taking names on the waiting list.
Yeah.
So you could be in a situation where there is a public program to help you, but you will probably be looking 3 years or more to get that type of assistance.
Wow. So when you're talking about subsidized housing, you're talking about like Section 8
Section
housing?
8 housing, those type. There are subsidized rental units in Oshkosh. It is always difficult to acquire more land to build those. A lot of hoops that you have to go through.
Yeah.
You often get neighborhood resistance against that type of thing.
Yeah, the NIMBYs, not
Yes.
in my backyard.
And so that's why I think that in the future, I think we have to look at a lot of what we're doing in Habitat. I could talk down the road is trying to do more mixed, where it's not just the affordable. I think we also have to look at housing units where they're permanent, and also rentals being part of it.
Okay.
Because what happens is you get the equivalent of what people say, a large city, the projects, and nobody wants to be there.
Yeah.
So-
Well, the sad reality is if people want to use that term, the projects, quote unquote, we're going to have a lot more people probably in the projects than we have not in projects. If this continues at the pace and rate that it's going.
Yeah, and if I could real quick
Sure.
too, I don't think we're in that situation in Oshkosh right now. I think we've done a really good job with the units that we have of really trying to keep them up and whatnot. Again, a constant theme is going to be, because we've talked before, is just supply.
Yeah.
And it's going to really not be just one solution. It's going to have to be trying things, sometimes failing at those things, but at the end of the day, we just have to build more units.
Yeah, yeah. And the rent has to be set at something that people can afford. Some of these places that are being built, they have amenities such as, one or two that I have talked with the builders on, or the developers. They offer a dog park on site. Well, that I think is a good amenity because more and more people are starting to, they have dogs and they need to rent property that allows dogs. So that's a good thing and that's a needed thing. But, when we start talking about some of these more upscale type amenities and bowling alleys and some of that other stuff, those are amenities that you don't necessarily need. It might be nice to have it, but you don't necessarily need it. And when they offer it, that's packed into the rent rate that everybody's paying. And that's one of the reasons that these rents are as high as they are.
Well, and if I could, and generally, because we work with people that are lower income and whatnot, but I'll give a defense of some, and this is why it's occurring. The cost of doing some of these new developments is getting so expensive that adding the bowling alley, adding the dog park, doesn't add that much incremental to your cost, yet you can charge a lot more. So if you see new development going up, and a lot of people talked about some of the specific projects north of Lake Butamore, south of the river here, you as a developer are spending so much time and money into putting that project together that you find that if you just add more and you can get a higher rate, you will make some money. The problem is that on the affordable housing, everybody's talking about it, but it's really hard to get the private. You need incentives.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of government assistance, and there just hasn't been the will to get there yet. So we're building units. We're getting the higher end of the market fixed. We're not getting the lower end of the market fixed.
Yeah. Well, it seems almost like an impossible situation. When I look at how many more units we need per year and what's being built out there, and the people who can afford that, truly afford it without, changing their lifestyle dramatically, or by putting them into a position where they have to go without something else that they may need.
Yeah, if I could, at least there is now awareness. I mean, universally, I was at one of the joint legislative hearings on the upcoming state budget. And everybody in the room was asking for more resources, but there was kind of almost universal agreement that something has to be done on housing. So yeah, I'm pessimistic because there aren't a lot of actual ideas out there, but at least there's almost now universal, something's got to be done. And you're seeing this at the city level, the county level, and the state level. Now the problem is that everybody's afraid or looking at the cost per unit to do it. Where I take some pride is we're actually trying to do something.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at just the units that we're doing. We talked on the phone. I've been trying a lot of things that will probably be smoking black holes in the ground, or they might work. But the reality is, if I could extend for we're trying a subdivision idea out in Omro. It is through a niche program, the U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Home Funding Initiative. They told others, and I received 4 calls this week from California, Pennsylvania, Indiana, and now Western Wisconsin. They had told me that I was a national expert on this because I was doing one try at it. And honestly, because everybody's looking for an idea that works.
Yeah.
And my response is, it works, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And you will make a lot of mistakes. You learn from the mistakes. And honestly, we haven't even closed this loan with USDA yet, and they're already referring other people to talk to me. How do you do this? Well,
see, that suggests, as we know, this is a nationwide program as well as state, local, what have you, regional. But these developers, and I don't want to paint them with the brush that they are big bad developers, but I will paint them with a brush that I think in many cases they're greedy. They're greedy, they're money hungry, and they're doing it at the expense of fellow human beings.
Well, my only, we work with a lot of people because a lot of times they'll support somebody like Habitat. I guess my response on that would be, they're filling a part of the market niche. And I think your argument truly back is, well, who is helping this part of the market?
Right.
Because if you had any other, what's happening on the higher end, people are looking to make money, are seeing a demand for housing, and they're seeing a market that's willing to pay it, so they're filling it. The problem is we have, by the ALICE study, other surveys, the housing study, we got 20-30% of the market saying, I need housing, yet nobody's filling that part of the market. And here we have Habitat kind of like bravely trying to go into the breach. And we've talked in 3 to 5 years, we might be able to build 6 to 10 units per year. Well, you just showed we need 1,500. And my response is, well, at least we're getting those 6 to 10 a year. And what we're learning, we're sharing with everybody we can.
Yeah. As part of that same study, respondents were asked, do you believe that the current housing market adequately meets the needs of the households in Oshkosh? And now, again, I don't have any idea who took part in this survey, but let me ask you, since you were kind of a part of this, do you know who the respondents were?
There were 20-some active respondents who were on every meeting. and I was the Habitat person kind of representing the affordable housing.
Okay.
There was everything from high-end developers to small private
Yeah.
developers, government officials. It was a fairly good cross-study. Plus, we were doing this during COVID, and you had to have people that were available.
Sure.
Then my final would be, they also did community kind of like listening sessions where a link was sent out. I would say they did a really good job of having a cross-section of the community. They had 300 some respondents who just volunteered, and they did look to see that it was a cross-section of the community.
So about 300 respondents overall then?
Yes, which I think is a representative sample. I think in looking at who was said, I would listen to one of the listening sessions, and I think it was a good cross-section of those that are in Oshkosh.
Yeah. How did they find these 300? Do you know?
They worked with the planning department. The study was commissioned by the Oshkosh Planning Department.
Okay.
It was a consultant that's done this a lot of times out of Omaha. As I said, some of their solutions were rather cookie cutter, but they did also, I felt, they went into the neighborhood associations, just visual observations, driving around, taking pictures, taking notes. They also did try to hold 3 or 4 of these listening sessions. The planning department would report on just the logistics of what would happen. I would be the person on the commission just listening to the review.
Okay. Well, so of the 300 or so respondents, again, the question was, do you believe that the current housing market adequately meets the needs of the households in Oshkosh? About 60% of the people making less than $15 an hour said no. So that's 60% almost. And then families with children was the next highest at 43% who said no. The city is not doing a good job meeting those things. And then we had elderly singles or couples who need some kind of assistance. About 28% of them said no. And then college students, about 17% said no. In all, about 35% of the respondents said Oshkosh was average when it came to housing affordability. So I don't think that that's doing a real good job. I don't think that that's something that the city of Oshkosh should, sit back and rest on their laurels saying, we got it.
I'm a Habitat guy. I've been a Habitat guy now for 11 years. Habitat, what I'm hearing in your voice too is that the study really affirmed a lot of things that we knew. And I think the planning department wanted, I think some of the results were going to be self-evident.
Sure.
But the study is just another that we did a broad survey and we found, yes, there are problems. Yeah. The problem that we're seeing is, and this is where Habitat is really trying to fill the role, that person making the service level job, or it even can be a couple where they both have service level jobs. We built with someone who works at Quick Trip recently. How in the world are they supposed to find something decent to live? Everybody's recognizing that the problem exists. What they're not doing is we spend a lot of time talking about possible solutions. Yeah. And where I'm taking some pride, especially the last couple of years, that we've been trying some things.
Yes. Since you mentioned about retail and fast food and that type of thing, it's I guess heartwarming in many respects to see some of these employers, paying anywhere between $16 and $20, $21, $22 an hour. But, if the cost of housing wasn't quite what it is, that might be close to a living wage.
Yes.
But it's not a living wage when you factor in the cost of housing right now. And I don't see how long people are going to be able to sustain these high rate rents.
Right. We don't see a problem until it's just screaming at us in our face.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing right now is this has been creeping up on us for some time. Habitat's been talking about it. The estimated wage that someone would have to be making now in the Oshkosh area, this is just throwing out a number from a couple of years, was $21 an hour just a couple of years ago. Now with the increases, we're probably talking 24, 26, 27 an hour.
Yeah.
So the problem has been that the workforce employment problem and the housing problem are so interrelated. So many employers in our area are saying, I can't get workers. And I'm working specifically with Omro now. Yeah. I'm seeing traditionally they're trying to offer $15 to $18 an hour. That should be a living wage, not with the housing shortage.
No.
And unfortunately, employers would probably have to be paying upper 20-something an hour And they're thinking that's insane. Well, the other solution is try to get more housing units built.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, because you guys are doing some, I think, unique and positive things. You guys have been, not you yourself, but Oshkosh, Habitat for Humanity for Oshkosh, or of Oshkosh, has been in the city since April of 1989. Do you know about how many homes they used to build?
Sure. We've built since 1989 41 homes in Oshkosh.
Wow, that doesn't seem like very many.
It doesn't, because for the longest time it was a volunteer organization. They built 2 in their first 7 years of existence. Now, until it was a volunteer organization, really good-hearted people and whatnot, we built 1 to 2 a year for the longest time. Now we've moved it up. There was 1 year where they built 3. Now we're consistently trying to get it up to 3 and then move it to that 5, 6, 10 range. At that point, yes, we'll have quintupled production, but we're still just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, for sure. So, explain to me 3 and then 5, 6, and 10 range. Over what period of time do you anticipate that happening?
Well, Grove Street in Oshkosh right now. I talked to you, we're trying to buy bigger strips of land so we can do more development at the time. Right now there's 2 houses that will be completed this end of June and 1 in July. The next 3 will begin within a month or even before those homes are created.
2 will be done in June, 2 will be done in July?
2 homes, 1 will be finished in end of June.
Okay.
The other, we're setting the closing date, it will be mid to late July.
Okay.
We're immediately rolling to 3 more homes then.
Okay, so that's 5.
That's 5, and that is production in about a year, year and a half that would have taken us 5 to 7 years to do.
Okay.
So but what we're seeing is, okay, we're not going to solve this problem by ourselves, but what we're learning is lessons that can we get other players into the game.
Yeah.
If I could go to Omro real quick. Omro,
sure, yeah.
We bought a larger chunk of land. Okay, we're building 5. We're going to build 6 altogether on Grove Street. Now can we move that model to 20 homes? And the idea there is we're going to make it a habitat and a private development where we're going to invite private developers who will agree to build homes at a lower price point. So we can be building those 3 to 5 habitat homes while somebody else is also building homes.
Sure.
Suddenly we've multiplied a situation where I feel that 6 to 10 a year range will be done.
Okay.
And we're already looking at the next subdivision idea after that. And I talked to you, I'm looking back to Oshkosh. Okay, we'll finish Grove Street. Can we agree on another larger piece of land? Okay.
The ones on Grove Street right now, just so people kind of have a mental idea of where this is, it's on the property that is for people who used to live here, and have been here for years and years, maybe even being natives here. It's where the old Mercy Hospital property used to be. I've not been over there recently. It's not like it's that far from where I live or anything, but I just haven't had occasion to be there. Is the whole former Mercy Hospital down now?
Yeah, what happened is it's Bella Vista is an assisted living place.
Right.
What we had was an odd piece of land, and it's a little bit more narrow. It's long. And the problem is for private development, there are certain places where upmarket doesn't work. They like a larger piece of land. They liked it. So what we are doing is we are spending a lot of time, and we're trying to work more with the Planning Commission. What about those odd parcels that wouldn't work for the bigger home? Can we start building the smaller, more repeatable home there? And so we're really proud of Grove Street because they don't look like the normal habitat homes that the volunteers used to do years ago. We're rather plain.
Yeah.
And so I'd really encourage people to look at Grove Street. We've really did, I think, a really good job of making them fit the neighborhood. Just some little accents, whether it's shingles, whether it's the way the pillars taper, those type of things, so it doesn't look like a habitat home.
Right.
But then what we've done is we've got 6 homes going on a parcel that I think would have remained undeveloped. Now I'll also say that the city gave us a lot of incentives because it was going to be very hard to develop that land. So now we've got it done. We'll have it done by the end of 2024, and we need to start working on other parcels already.
And that those 6 parcels, I'm looking at my notes here, correct me if I'm wrong, that is adding, where did I just see it? I just saw it. Okay, here we go. 1.2 to $1.4 million of new housing.
Yes, we're shocked because, and what you're seeing is just the shortage of housing on the affordable market, affordable side. We are seeing appraisals because we will build the homes. We use volunteer labor and everything. Our all-in costs on a lot of those homes that we're building right now on Grove Street are coming up to be about $189,000 is what I think I budgeted on those. I'm expecting appraisals back 220 right off the bat. We do have protection so that a family can't just flip a home right away because we try to keep it.
Yeah.
But it is what we have seen unbelievable increases in value for our people that are buying it, and that just shows you there's a shortage in the market.
So 189,000 to 200 and...
Yeah, 189,000 is the actual all-in cost from the land to the materials to all the contracted work. That's what it costs to build the home. What we do with the families, we work with them, what can you afford?
Sure.
We keep it below 30%. We try to go to 27% of their income.
Oh, okay.
So they end up buying the house for less sometimes. Right now it is a real struggle for it. They buy the house for less than it cost us to build it. But they could, on the market, just turn around and sell it for, we estimate the appraisal would be 220. So we have special...
Well, they can't do that right away, though.
Yes,
they have
we
to
have
wait,
to,
right?
well,
because they can't just come in, get a government-funded home, and then they flip it right away.
Right, and so what we do on those is, to tell you the truth, legally they could, but they'll pay all the money back. We have restrictions.
Sure.
So that they can't make profit on it.
Sure, okay. So what if... you're putting these homes in different neighborhoods. What if the home doesn't appraise at $189,000?
Yes.
Then
that I would say that there are times where that has happened in the habitat, but then there are not as many restrictions, and then we are losing money on the home. That may have happened. I wasn't around here at that point, but during the 2008-2009 Great Recession, it's conceivable that that was happening.
The Great Recession.
Yeah, because we had...
It was bad.
I was in Eugene.
That's when the housing bubble was.
Yes, I was in Eugene, Oregon at that point, and housing prices dropped 43% in a one-year period. Conceivably that could happen again, and that's one of the great dangers of not building more supply of houses.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Tom, since these people in other states are considering you an expert now. Gaze into your crystal ball, if you will.
Sure.
How long, and this is just pure speculation, I understand, but how long do you think this can be sustained before we have another kind of real estate type recession, if you will?
There's been a lot of concern recently. I went out west when I got to see a city where the housing market collapsed. And I saw it put a tremendous drag on the economy, incredibly high unemployment. It was tough. I would say we are not yet in a red zone, but there's a wee bit of flashing yellow right now. The problem that we're seeing right now is these prices are not sustainable. So what happens? What you're seeing right now is we're seeing incidences of multiple families living together in a spot that's really not designed for that.
Yeah.
We're seeing people in rentals where couch surfing is becoming a way of life. We're seeing a number of people sleep in cars. We're seeing the tiny house development trying to absorb some of this. Everything that I'm telling you is an impending wave that we should be worried about. Your question is legit. I don't think we're there yet, but I am beginning to worry about the wave building.
Well, and builders, these contractors and developers, they're not stupid. I think most of them are pretty greedy right now, the way they're acting. But I don't think they're stupid. Nor are the lending institutions who are giving them loans to do these projects. So why can't they see what everybody else can see? This is common sense stuff. Nobody has to be an expert at this.
My take on the early 2000s, a lot of people did see how can this keep going. But the problem is you're in the individual moment. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of times on the builders, and I've talked to you about this as well, a builder has a lot. They have to try to feed their family. So they look at their development costs, they look at their financing, and what's happening is they're having to build a more expensive house than probably they even want. But they need to pencil it out.
Well, but if they look at it long term, you know, you can't just look at something short term. You've got to look at it long term. And if you make it affordable long term, then you're going to always have a steady supply of tenants coming through. Whereas if you put those prices high, those prices can only sustain at that level for a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
I mean, why? I don't understand. Like I said, this is common sense. I don't understand why these developers can't see that.
I would say, though, in some of the things that we have been getting, and like, you know, like I said, maybe I can come on your show every once in a while as a national expert. You know,
Sure.
if you look at the
Doors
situation, why am I getting all these phone calls? Because people are realizing just what you're saying. And what they're looking for is, you know, okay, this guy is trying this and he's able to build these affordable homes. Call that guy. Because I will tell you, it is really complex to do it. We are working on, by my count, 3-4 different government incentive programs. We are working with a city council. We are working with Winnebago County. I am a lawyer for 23 years and whatnot. And I'm finding it very complex. USDA is asking me for guidance on some of these things and working with because nobody had ever used the program that they were trying before. So, you know, we've said it twice as a joke. That's why I'm a national expert, because I'm the first guy to weed into this. And can we do it this way? So I would say on yours, there are good builders that I am finding that want to work with us, that I'm hoping to partner with on this OMRO. If this can work, I will tell every Habitat affiliate in our area, this is how we did it. And I think you will see builders who want to build smaller, more affordable houses for the very reason you said. They understand there's a market, that it's needed, just the complexity of having to do it themselves. We're going to have to work as a team.
Yeah. You know, build apartments so that you've got multi-units, but make it affordable, you know, and that way it is going to sustain long term. I don't know. You and I can see it. People elsewhere can see it. I don't know why they can't see it. That stumps me a little bit, I guess.
Well, one of my one pushback is that, you know, you mentioned NIMBY.
NIMBY, yes.
Yeah,
Not in my backyard.
Yeah, one of the ways to solve NIMBY is you have a lot of processes, hearings, all those type of things. Those all add to the cost and the complexity of development. The other thing is you often have, well, the home should be environmental, they should be handicapped accessible, they should be this, lead removal standards, all those type of things for rehab.
Well, if you're building something brand new, you don't have lead.
Yes, but that's why we're doing the brand new. People are asking me all the time, why aren't we fixing up the older homes?
Oh yeah, I've got that on the list to talk
because
about.
there are so many restrictions, so many things that were seen as good ideas of building 50, 60 years ago, that the legacy costs of taking care of those problems is almost abhorrently high.
Sure.
That we're better off just knocking down the building and try to build a new one, but that takes a lot of time then.
Yeah. I mean, even if you can get the exterior to look like other homes in the neighborhood, that's one thing. But then you've got all the other stuff, staircases that may not be wide enough to accommodate. Well, you're not going to get a wheelchair up a staircase, but they may not be able to accommodate certain people that need to be accommodated. You know, you've got possible lead in those. Something that's older, you've got asbestos.
You're going right down my checklist.
So lead, asbestos.
ADA non-compliant.
Yep, non-compliance.
We have also when you're trying to do assessments, we were donated a house, you tear it apart, you find wiring that doesn't make code, you find
like what's the older wiring, knob?
Yes, yes.
Tube knob
Yes,
tube, what is that
yes.
called?
No, I would. It's escaping my mind, but I will just say, in tearing apart, you're in a city that has a lot of older housing. Oshkosh is the third oldest city in Wisconsin.
Wow.
We grew rapidly, so we built a lot of just primo, beautiful housing.
Yes.
We also built some slapdash working class housing where the people were trying the best with what they had. And when you take apart a wall on an older house, you will see an archaeological of all these things that were tried over the years.
Yes.
To tell you the truth, with all the regulations regarding lead, asbestos, making it ADA compliant, it just makes the cost of rehabbing some of these older houses astronomical. That's why you see that older, you have to, we were talking with somebody today who was asking us for advice. They would like to buy an older character house and fix it up. We were doing partially the Scared Straight program, because do you realize how much you are going to put into it, and you will be, this will be your life. And I think they're really committed to it, but at least they're going into it with their aware of what they're going to be facing.
Yeah, absolutely. For full disclosure here, not that I really need to disclose it, but I did interview Tom for an article in the Oshkosh Herald. I am taping this show on Thursday, April 20th, and that article appears on the front page below the fold. So if you live in the Oshkosh area, please watch for that. It's a good story. Not so much because I wrote it, but because Tom is an expert and he provided me with very good information. And if you're watching this show and you don't live in Oshkosh, just go to oshkoshherald.com. I believe that is the address, and you can read not only that article with Tom, but the whole paper. Every week, it comes out every Wednesday. And it's a wonderful publication, and I'm very honored and proud to be associated with it. So that's my little plug for me and for them. But when I was talking to you for that article, and I can't remember if I put it in the story or not, because I had certain guidelines, column length and word count, and so forth, that I had to maintain. So I don't know if it made it in the article. I may not have put it in there. But you were talking to me about after World War II, from the end of World War II to, I believe, 1964. Okay, I did remember that. See, my memory, it works sometimes. There was just a lot of building here. Why don't you share that story?
Largest housing boom in U.S. history.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Millions of units built. And if you think of it, what was occurring? The subdivision was created during that point. We did a lot of urban work at that point. Why were we doing it? Why did it work back then? I would like this to be my legacy, that we recreated that boom. Because just like you said, everybody realizes it's needed.
Yeah.
And if we could do it, and I talked to a lot of families where they had older people who owned these companies, worked with them. The Van Handel A-frame, the Barron Ranch. If you go to Fond du Lac, I grew up on the east side of Fond du Lac, 1,500 of these homes built.
Yeah.
If you go to the Fox Cities up there, probably 3,500 of the Van Handel A-frames created. So why did it work? First, there was a national will.
Sure.
The GI Bill got created. The GI Bill was one of the greatest stimulus of home ownership in American history. The second is people were coming off the war effort. They had a lot of cash. They couldn't spend it during the war, so that you had disposable income. But then you had a consensus among builders, we have to crank out units. And government was a partner that did not prevent during that point. People were very much for building of new homes. And then my final comment was, a lot of the builders from that frame could walk up the sidewalk and tell you what the interior of the home is, just from a little characteristics, because they were very good at building the same house again and again, but just enough individualization that nobody realized that there's only 3 or 4 models of this house. That's what we're trying to do in Omro.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to recreate across the region.
So, 2 things. Tell us a little bit more about Omro, because it's a little subdivision of 20.
Yes,
20
it's an
homes.
experiment. It's a bigger experiment.
Okay. How do we get back to that mindset, of, I guess, getting the developers back to that mindset of building things? How do we do that?
Well, 2 or 3 things. Tell you what, invite me in a few months. I'll show you the etchings of what we're going to do in Omro. I think
Great.
you have to do, what did I just say? You have to create a similar floor plan that can be individualized enough that they don't look the same. but 90-some% of the home build is the same. If
So
we
you're
could-
having those etchings done now, those renderings?
Yes, we're going to be
Okay.
working to getting those in the next few months. So because everybody wants to see the pictures, what are
Okay.
we going to be building in Omro?
All right.
If you look at Grove Street, it's only 2 to 3 models, but there's enough individuality. What we did is we do an experiment, then we do a bigger experiment. Now can we reproduce that experiment? Grove Street is the first experiment, doing it one way. Can we build more units if we build them closer together and we only have to change some? Now can we move it up to 20? Now can we move it up to my next goal, 30, 40?
And the challenge in Oshkosh, and you know this as well as anybody else, the challenge in Oshkosh is we are not only landlocked, but we're waterlocked as well.
Yeah, we can't build east.
And so, where are we to go?
It's just, and we're repeating some, is that, okay, we've got to try some things. So here's the next, so I've been talking with our team a lot, and now I'll start getting calls from, those that work on the urban agencies. We're going to be trying some things. We really do believe that townhouses are the way to go, and if you read the study, there seems to be. 9th Avenue has some examples of what we believe are successful townhouse projects. Could we recreate those models?
Where on 9th?
If you look just a couple blocks west of Maine going there is a development 15, 20 years old that we think is successful.
Okay.
We are looking at others. There's a couple buried in Congress Field. There is a 2-3 unit townhouse thing that was a historical thing way back. Somebody back in the day did it, probably late 1800s, early 1900s. Could we do models like that? And I'd really like to have the dialogue with the city and landowners. Could we and we would need zoning changes for some of these. Could we build things that you wouldn't say NIMBY if it looked like this? And what if, one of the problems for habitat is we're often getting a lot and then we get one house on it. What if we could get a couple lots together, but we could get 3 units on it, or 4?
And that's a great idea, but then zoning codes have to be changed.
Zoning codes is one.
So there's another reason why you have to work well with the city, which you guys are definitely trying to do. I think what you're talking about on 9th Street is, if I'm not mistaken, when you told me where it is, I think that's on the former Miles Kimball
That is correct.
property.
And Miles Kimball's is, actually the old Miles Kimball building is being revamped right now to do some of the higher, but just in a little bit farther from that. I think that is we do try to consult with the city planning department, because part of the problem is, like I said, you've got to work as a team, but somebody wants to do this, somebody else wants to do this.
Yeah.
And I do think that they are looking for higher density development in that region.
Yeah.
So I think you will see more of that. What we're trying to do is blend it. Kind of like what we're doing with Omro. Can you have some that are market rate? Can you have some that will be more affordable? Can you have some that will be truly affordable?
So kind of mixed use, if you will, but not so much with the use, but it's mixed rent rates, if you will.
Everybody wants to live in a mixed income neighborhood, but we've been very unsuccessful pulling it off again.
Yeah.
I go to Pittsburgh. I've gone to looking at Seattle has some developments where they've pulled it off.
Yeah.
And so, okay, why does it work? Can we recreate that in Oshkosh? I think there are opportunities here.
Sure.
I think we can.
There's also a tiny home village, and,
Yes.
and that's out north of town. That is more transitional housing. It's meant to be temporary housing for the people who are renting there. But one thing I think people would, I understand that's sort of an experiment, but I do think, because I watch HGTV a lot, and I personally think, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think that because people are clamoring to either buy something that they can afford or rent something that they can afford. And if they could be in a tiny home, or maybe not a true tiny home like these are, but tiny homes in the sense that they're not large homes like we see. They're not even
what I've called micro homes.
Yeah.
They're not tiny homes. Tiny homes, if you look to the tiny house development, those homes are 300 and some square feet.
Yeah, you want something a little bit bigger.
Yes, most
I think people would be willing to downsize.
Most code wants, in many municipalities, and Oshkosh has done a really good job of at least talking about the zoning changes. 1,000 square feet to 800 square feet is the minimum. what I call the micro home exists between upper 400s to about 800 square feet.
Okay.
Canadians have done a lot of success with this type of home. I really do think it's what you're saying is, what if you're a single older person? What if you're a person just starting out? Couldn't we get you a home that's ideal for 1 to 2 people, can be more accessible? Mm-hmm. The market in the United States has not really favored those type of homes. I think we should be, and that's something where a lot of discussion, we got to work with people. I will say the city planning department has been open to discussion. We haven't seen the fruits of it all the time, but at least the dialogue's occurring.
Correct. Well, so, you guys are building this development on Grove Street, and the homes, I'm going to take a drive by there so that I can kind of see the work that you've done to make those homes fit into the neighborhood from an exterior characteristic standpoint. But I'm glad that you're doing that, because used to be, once upon a time, people could drive down the street, and if there was a development being...
It's a
yep,
habitat
that's a
house.
habitat house. That's a habitat house. And there, you could just tell. You could just tell. And those were usually, almost always, I think, they were done as an infill build, where there's one in one neighborhood and there's another one over here in another neighborhood, because for whatever reason the existing home that had been there had been torn down, and so when it got raised, the city took it over, and Habitat came along and bought it from the city and did a build there. But you can't get up to scale.
Yeah, see, we still
that's
do
why
it the same. That we still do it the same way that you described. But here's a couple things that we changed. The reason you could say it was a habitat house is we tried to make it as absolutely cheap as possible. Our new philosophy is, no, we've got to make it so that the neighborhood wants this house.
Yeah.
And we have to fit long term, we have to fit within that plan that you're discussing. Mm-hmm. And to do that, we're going to have to spend a little bit more money. A huge discussion we had with the city on Grove Street, and we got some incentives, garages. Habitat homes used to not have garages. A garage is one of the number one complaints that would come over to about a habitat house. They have their stuff all over the yard. Yeah. It's just a reality is that we have to build houses that fit the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That often means that we're going to have to raise some more money, but then you just got to do it. And the finding is that's why I think that people are becoming more acceptable to sell us larger parcels of land, because we did it right. Yep. And what you could see is, if you were the neighbor living near a field that we're going to develop, that you no longer think it's going to be the old habitat house. Yeah. And I do think that there is the opportunity for us on the micro house to build really attractive subdivisions. Mm-hmm. And the other is, I think you will see modular homes in the future, where they'll be built someplace else, and our role will largely be to get the whole development done and get modulars working, if we can get the quality of those up.
Now explain for folks, and for me, I think I understand what a modular home is, but so you're saying you're going to build it somewhere else, and then move it to a specific...
Invite me on your show in another year if I pull this one up. And what we're looking for on the modulars, and it will not be Omro, it will not be this subdivision, but I'm looking at a future prototype. Okay. And what you would do on the modular homes, there's a lot of people confuse modular homes with manufactured homes. Different code standards, better quality. In fact, a modular, I would defy you, a well-built modular, you can't tell the difference between a simple ranch and a modular. So the unit cost is going to be higher, but we can get production up. Okay. Because the thing about production at a modular facility is they can produce in the winter, they can produce with trained people. I mean, when we use volunteers with Habitat, yes, we're getting a lot of people involved, but it just takes slower. We take 5.5 to 7 months to build a home. Sure. I want to see if we can move that cycle down to 2 to 3 months. And yes, we're going to have to use financing options. We're going to have to know. I studied government appropriations bills like they were my MLB fantasy league. And I really think, though, that I don't see that we're stealing money from the government or grabbing money. We're doing what the money was supposed to do. That market that you said, nobody's filling the affordable. There's government money out there. The one who can figure it out and then teach others will have solved the problem.
Well, I think you're on the right track, Tom. I really do. you know, you guys are being very aggressive about what you're doing, and I mean aggressive in a good sense, not in a bad sense.
Well, if I could jump in, if everybody's
Sure, go
saying
right
it's
ahead.
an emergency, somebody's got to do something, didn't somebody have to move forward? Mm-hmm. So we could get killed, but I think so far I've got a really great team. Rob Robbie, my construction manager, he is so into this. Liz Last, she's doing, helping us with the repairs and rock the block. She's amazing. I've got a new person, Ann Vandehay. They're a pretty fearless crew. And I've explained to these guys, okay, we are going into this, and the one thing that they will not be able to say about us is that we don't try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, we're going for the Omro City Council on May 9th. I want to reassure those guys. We're bringing a professional land developer with us, Martinson and Isley. We're going to get it right, because we know if we get that one wrong, we'll never do this again.
Where is this in Omro that you're hoping to build this small subdivision?
We jokingly call it the Quick Trip property, and somebody said Quick Trip land sounds like a fantasy park or something like that. It's called Springview 2 Acres. We'll be going. It's on the east side, about 2 blocks north of the Quick Trip.
Okay.
It's on the east side.
Okay.
It was a development that got stopped dead with the Great Recession, and every private developer just couldn't make it pencil out. Mm-hmm. Since we won grants, we became a national expert to the USDA. We got funding that the numbers work. And I will say what we're really being funded to do is create the infrastructure so other homes could be built.
Sure.
That's so expensive and nobody could get a return on it.
You may not know the answer to this, and if you don't, that's fine. But do you know how much money, federal money, and possibly state money too, is out there to, to build more affordable homes, to monetize it so developers are willing to move forward on projects like we're talking about here?
Excellent question. I'll come back to you. I would say it's growing. I would say the problem is it's a large pot, but it's very niched. Mm-hmm. And where I would say that we have succeeded is we spent the time and really dug in. Could you layer this funding on this funding on this funding? Because everybody looks at it and they say, it's so complex, I can't figure it out.
Well, that's the government for you, right?
Well, and I will tell you, for this one that the USDA won, I have filed dozens, if not, I'm getting probably 100 plus reports.
Wow.
For this. And what we're really doing is trying to streamline this process, working with the government. Mm-hmm. Government looks for accountability. They need to be able to show that every dime was spent properly. The problem is they often make it so difficult to prove that, that you can't actually access the money. USDA, all I can tell them is their state of Wisconsin appropriation was $5 million. We're using $500,000, and we were the only ones that got through the whole process.
When you say you got $500,000, is that that's grant money? Obviously, when did you get that?
It took about 1.5 years to get it. We were one of the first. We're the first in the Midwest to achieve this. We're the first. This program had existed for a few years. We're the first to apply to it. So.
And is that what's being used on Grove Street?
That is what's being used as part of the OMRO funding.
Okay.
What we're using on Grove Street, 2 other programs. See, again, I'm going to name off about 5-6 different government programs.
Sure.
Where we put it together to do the whole different. Mm-hmm. There's TIF financing, which is Community Development Block Grant given by the city.
Yeah, but that has you got to fit into that niche.
We had a giant whiteboard, and I have my map of if we get this, then we can do this. If we can get this, then we can do that. So what you have to do, I would say altogether I'm using 7 different funding programs.
Okay.
And we're one of the first to put it all together to make it work. So my role is going to be at the end, 4 years, 5 months when I retire, is I hope to have taught 6 to 12 other people who can teach 6 to 12 other people and get this thing's building.
Well, I will tell you this, you are a credit to your industry, and I think that Habitat for Humanity Oshkosh is truly fortunate and blessed to have you, because you know your stuff. This is the first time, really, other than when I interviewed you for the Herald article. We had not ever talked prior to that.
Yes.
So we've talked and known each other for about, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month at the outside. But I can just tell not only that you're a lawyer, because you're willing to sift through this stuff and you can figure it out, and that's a good thing, you know, because if ordinary folks were trying to figure it out, the money may never be tapped because they can't figure it out, whereas you can. So I just think Habitat is really blessed to have you. Real quickly, because our time is winding down, I know you guys are involved with a lot of different things. Rock the Block, you mentioned.
Yes.
You've also got the Restore over
Yes.
on the frontage road, the east side of Keller.
Sure. Yes,
Yep.
you're correct.
And so that's a good thing. People can go to your website, habitatoshkosh.org, and find out all of that stuff. What's the one thing that you want people to know about either volunteering or somehow helping you guys, or just in general what you're doing?
Two quick things. Habitatoshkosh.org. Look at the website, donate, all those type of things, and volunteer. The second is come back to your show in about a year, invite me back. And I intend to show you what experiments worked, which ones didn't work, but more importantly, I'll be honest about what it didn't work, why it will work next time.
Okay.
And I hope to be able to tell you I taught 2 other Habitat affiliates to do what we're doing.
Okay. Well, excellent. So you want me to bring you back in a year, or do you want to come back sooner than that?
Sooner if you want. I will be. This is an ongoing experiment.
Maybe 6 months?
And I want people to see so that they're trying solutions.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Tom, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Again, the website is habitatoshkosh.org. You can just find a ton of stuff there. So as we wind down this show, I just want to tell folks that we need volunteers. It's up on the screen right now. We need someone to work approximately 4 to 5 hours a month. We tape in the evenings on Thursdays. I can talk to people in more depth about that, but you get a chance to meet a lot of interesting, smart, and fun people like Tom. And we've got a good crew, and we have a lot of fun. I'd love to hear from you, though. So if you're interested in learning more about it, you don't have any experience, you don't need to have any, we'll train you. Just give us a call at 920-209-7387, or you can email me at ionoshkosh@gmail.com. So as we also wrap up, we are losing one of our very finest and quickest learner that we've had on this show in some time, and that's not to put anybody else down. She's just, I'll tell you what, she started with us when she was 16 years old, and the only reason she's leaving is because her folks are moving about an hour and 50 minutes to 2 hours away from here. And frankly, that would be, I usually pick her up and take her home, and frankly, that's a little too far for me to drive. So, but Chevy, we wish you nothing but the very best, and we have enjoyed you so much, and we are going to sorely miss you, really and truly, and but we wish you, the very best in your future endeavors over in the Wittenberg area. So thank you for all that you've done for us for the last year and a half, 2 years. So with that, I want to thank Tom again. I want to thank the crew, and of course, I want to thank all of you. This is why we do it, is to help you get educated and enlightened about what's going on. So with that, I will say thank you for watching us, whether you're watching us on TV or listening to us on the radio. Thank you. And we will see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.